It seems unreal, but for the first time ever, Hollywood managed to release two adaptations from very famous IP and did it right. So, in this episode of the Italian Film Buff, we are talking about Punisher One Last Kill and Mortal Kombat 2. Welcome back! Ragazzi, ragazze, how are you doing? Come state? I'm doing well and I hope you're doing so. So today we're talking about Punisher, One Last Kill and Mortal Kombat 2. I want to talk about so many other stuff, but I've been very busy. But I will try my best to keep talking about movies and television. But anyway, today we have two very entertaining and juicy piece of content from very famous IP, and we gotta talk about that. And it's weird because in this moment the Cannes Film Festival is going on. There is the Cannes Film Festival, and it's been the second year in a row that I'm absent from the festival, and I'm in pain because of that. Because I love the Cannes Film Festival, but I will be back like Terminator. But anyway, let's talk about the Punisher. Let's start from the Punisher, One Last Kill. So Marvel released this special. It's 50 minutes long, was written by Jon Bernthal, that is also playing the Punisher, and Reinaldo Margus Green, that is also directing this special. He is the director of King Richard, Bob Marley, One Love, and Joe Bell, and many other movies and piece of. I think he worked on television as well. But anyway, he's the director and screenwriter with Jon Bernthal, and I have a iced coffee with me. Please have one as well and enjoy this episode. But anyway, let's talk about this, and let's start with a question. Do I need to watch Daredevil Born Again season 1 and 2 and the previous Punisher TV show to understand Punisher One Last Kill? Absolutely not, because I think they have done a very good job in writing this, because it's like when in comic book they start a new run for a character and they create a sort of ground zero in order to allow new readers to step in and old readers to start again with a new run. It's pretty much a similar concept. So if you have no clue who the Punisher actually is, and you have no clue what they've done in the past, and you have no clue about anything, this is a good ground zero to start to follow the character, because basically the story, it follows Frank Castle, that is being isolated with his own thoughts and demons after he's actually managed to complete his revenge, because we understand pretty clearly, even if again you have never seen the Punisher, you can understand pretty clearly that there was this mob or mafia family, as you want to call it, that basically killed his family, and as an act of revenge he became the Punisher and killed all of them. And after that, basically he has no purpose. He completely lost the plot. He is completely isolated in his own mind with his own demons, and he's suffering and he's in pain, and he doesn't know what to do, because he completed his revenge. And what happened after that? You go to live in the countryside, to, I don't know, being a farmer and eat a nice vegetable soup like Thanos in Endgame. That after he annihilated half of the universe, you just go to be like my grandparents. The generation of my grandparents, every grandparents in Italy, after they retire, they're gonna have their own, I don't know, field with lettuce and carrots, and have chicken in the backyard just for the sake of doing something peaceful. Does it work like that? No, I don't see the Punisher do that in New York, but anyway, or in Queens or whatever. That would be funny to watch, but very weird. But anyway, So he completely lost the plot and he's alone with his demon. And it's something that I really enjoy because I think that they managed to tackle something that it's part of the character, the original Punisher character, but it's also something that it's very central in today's society. So Punisher, in a way, I think that it's part of the idea of who the Punisher is a fact that the pain for losing his family is so burning and it's so powerful that in a way kind of lost his plot, mentally kind of checked out because he's completely driven by this rage and consumed by this rage, and he has an agenda, his agenda that he needs to basically stop every living criminal in the world because that's what he does. But at the same time, it's something that belongs to today because there is this sort of epidemic of men's completely that has lost the plot because they don't have meaning, they don't have a role in the world and in society, and they have no clue what they need to do. And I think about even veterans in the US, they work in the military, they've devoted their life to the military, then they go back to the civil life as a civilian and they have no clue what to do. They don't belong anywhere. It's something that has always been out there, but lately we're talking more openly about this. And I like the way the Punisher approached this because of course he's completely mentally broken. And it's funny because in a way it kickstarts the story in a way that gives us all the reference to understand who the Punisher is and what is the conflict that moves the story. And the conflict is basically that he lost himself. He doesn't know anymore what the Punisher is because the second he started his revenge, Frank Castle died and the Punisher was born, and that's his new persona. It's one of those cases where the trauma is so big where the persona take over the identity of the actual personality of the person. So it's something that they explored as well in the second season of Born Again, but it's something that in many character it's there even if we don't explore it. Like for example in Batman Returns, like as well in the first Batman by Tim Burton, the first two Batman by Tim Burton, mostly the second, they don't go to distance with dialogue to explore this like we do today, that they talk endlessly for hours, and that's bad dialogue writing and exposition. But in the Batman Returns you can understand clearly that Bruce Wayne is kind of gone. The second that Bruce Wayne create Batman, Bruce Wayne is gone. Bruce Wayne is a mask and the real person is Batman. That's what is left. And even when he's Bruce Wayne, you can understand there is this sense of something weird and not actually fine with Bruce Wayne. And that thing is that he's actually kind of repressing who he actually is because he doesn't know how to be a regular person. The only way he can be is being Batman. And even with his story with Selina Kyle in Batman Returns, this thing is there. He's actually Batman and she's actually Catwoman. She's reborn as Catwoman and that's who she is. And they are very weird as Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, but they are very themselves in a way when they are in costumes. The same is for the Punisher. The second the Punisher dies because he has fulfilled his purpose, so to get revenge, the person behind the mask that is Frank Castle is gone. He's no longer there. And there is a huge crisis in the person. And this happens in real life. When you lose your purpose, you're going to have a huge mental and identity crisis because you lose your purpose. And in a way, that's what happened. And so the conflict of the story is that he has to find a new purpose and he has to find himself. And how we serve and fix that purpose and that conflict through a character that wants revenge of the Punisher. So the last person still alive of this family clan is plotting revenge, as actually she's applying revenge. So basically, this character, she's deciding to she has found Frank Castle living in this neighborhood that was once ruled by this family, and then now, since there is a vacuum of power, every criminal living there is basically going around doing whatever they like, but because there is no more order in this very crooked part of town that is very dominated by criminality. And basically, she has given the location of the Punisher to everyone, and whoever is going to bring the head of the Punisher is going to kill the Punisher, is going to receive a big bounty. So every criminal is about to converge there to kill the Punisher. And this is the moment where he kind of snaps, and there is something else that make him snaps and make him understand what at the beginning is an effort to survival and the survival instinct. Then there is something else that will make him understand why he needs to be Punisher again. And there is a broader meaning to go back to say one batch, two batch, penny and dime. That things that he keeps saying to himself, even in the Daredevil season 2, where he confronts Daredevil, and that there is this thing, one batch, two batch, penny and dime. That was the book that he was reading to his kids, and I think it's very well executed. But the reason is this: I believe there is a universal law for some character that it can be applied to art. We have a saying in Italy, non complicare il pane. So, don't overcomplicate the bread. Or bread. Bread, it's a very delicious, amazing, rewarding, and a very versatile kind of food. And bread, if you just do a good bread, and you can't do a good bread in different way, you just stick to the craft, to the basic of the craft, you're gonna have something that it's very versatile and you can enjoy in so many ways, but it's delicious and perfect in the way it is. Okay? When you start to overcomplicate how to make bread, that's when you start to make mistake. And that's what happened with character like Frank Castle and the Punisher. Because in every adaptation that they made so far, they tried to overcomplicate the bread, because the Punisher at its core is the same as John Wick, that it's another kind of bread. But of course, it's another kind of bread. You can make the bread with different kind of way, but it's still bread. So the basic stuff that you gotta do are pretty much the same. In case of John Wick, is a revenge story set up in a world of assassin. In case of the Punisher, it's a revenge story, a guy just driven by revenge and rage, but in a different world, in a criminal world. And he's set up in this criminality world where violence, that level of violence, makes sense as much as makes sense for John Wick. It's like those characters, like Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher, who is Jack Reacher? He's a Boy Scout. He's a Boy Scout that doesn't tolerate bullies and the kind of bullies that we have in society. And he's gonna make sure that if somebody is doing something wrong and is a bully and is trying to make his way in the world with violence and stuff like that, he's gonna be there to punish it. I oversimplificated it, but this is what the character is. And that's it. You don't have to look for very complex way of convey those characters. In case of Reacher, you gotta write very good thriller. In case of the Punisher and John Wick, you gotta write a simple, amazing action movie, or in this case, an action TV special. And that's what they do. And I think that this is what they were supposed to do all along. And this Punisher One Last Kill, I think that if we look at the inspiration, it has basically, I can think about two products that were basically very crucial to make this happen. The first from the master, the one and only John Carpenter, District 13. I don't know if you ever watched District 13, the original by John Carpenter. You should. First thing first, because it's a great example of an indie movie made with a very low budget, but so incredibly brilliant in execution and main idea. So I think about District 13 simply because when we follow the Punisher, we see a neighborhood that is completely taken over by criminality. And is so desperate that even police, the only police car we see approaching the neighborhood, entering the neighborhood, it goes straight back from where it comes from, because the criminals, they raid right away the cars, and there are two cops and they gotta go away because it's an entire neighborhood filled with criminal and violence. And in District 13, the main story is that there is this gang that is taking over completely the neighborhood, and the violence is everywhere, and it's like they are like zombies taking over institution. And this thing is so powerful that the precinct of this part of the town is closing down. And this is the basis of the story, okay? Then there are other events, stuff like that, but the main idea is that those criminals are so violent and insane, and the whole idea is have something driven by blood and the idea of doing violence, and how the violence is portrayed and spread. In fact, when those criminals assault this precinct, and we have the main character barricaded there and try to survive and killing them, they die, and they look like they don't have self-awareness, or they don't care about their own survival. They just keep coming like zombies, and they just keep coming because they're just driven by violence and this sort of very kind of primitive idea of violence. And that's it. That's what they are. And in the same way, it's here, in a way. You have the Punisher walking around this neighborhood, and it's a neighborhood from hell. There is violence completely uncalled for and completely unmotivated, and there's no like reasoning. It's not like organized crime. They want power, they want control. No, it's violence without any meaning and any control, and it's just being cruel for the sake of being cruel. And it's something very common as well in District 13. Sorry, I messed up. Precinct 13. Sorry, I messed up. I made a mental translation with Precinct 13. Sorry about that. Assault on Precinct 13, the full title, I think. Yes, Assault on Precinct 13. Sorry, I realized now, because I was, why District 13 is called Precinct? Sorry. I was talking about Precinct 13. Sorry, brain fart. I was making sense of the Italian title and the English title. Sorry about that. But anyway, mistake like that, I love them. But anyway, this is like in the root of Precinct 13. But at the same time, this kind of violence and idea, we have The Raid by Gareth Evans. The Raid, the concept is plain and simple. There is this raid by police in this huge building full of criminals, and every level is a different kind of a different level of criminality till they reach the top of where they need to go. And there is just an excuse to make action. That's it. Plain and simple. And I think that the Punisher One Last Kill has taken those two concepts to make this story happen, both concepts. And what they do is basically in the first like 20 minutes, you have the narrative part with description of the world, where Frank Castle is, what's about to happen. And then we have a trigger, and then the raid start. It was Precinct 13 a little bit before, and then it's the raid suddenly. And you have 30 minutes of violence and shooting and action scene, and everything is managed very well, both by Bertal as playing the Punisher, and both by Reynaldo Marcus Green behind the camera. I think they've done a very good job, and I think it's very enjoyable. And I think this is what the Punisher is supposed to be. I think that from now on, if they want to make a trilogy even for the Punisher, they are supposed to go on like this. I don't want to see a show with dialogue, morality, stuff like that. Not because I don't think the character can have that discussion, that level of depth, but because I think you don't have to overcomplicate the bread. The character, this is the what the character is all about: action, and you gotta make raw, violent, and funny action scene. And I believe this is the road ahead. And I think that with Daredevil Born Again Season 2 and 1, I think, speaking of Marvel, this is one of the best. Those are the two best adaptation of Marvel character ever made. I'm honest here. And the reason is because they realize, and for the love of God, they needed they were on the verge of collapse of the Marvel Studios to realize this. So to realize that in order to make a good adaptation, you have to kind of follow a rule that is the same in the comic book. What I mean is this: Kevin Feige, when he started the Marvel Studio and the whole thing, had a very good idea, but then had a very bad idea. The very good idea was to make something very similar to the comic book. So, or at least to take an element that they use in the comic book, but to basically enhance that idea, that concept in movies, because in movies works more directly. So to create a shared universe with those compelling characters, Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and whatever, Hulk, and connect those characters, and the single movie made with those characters as main character, in order to create then a gigantic event that was the first Avengers. And then from there, have the audience get used to, okay, watch Iron Man, there is a post-credit scene. This is something that before cinema was almost never doing. I mean, post-credit scene existed before, but not with this function, like I gotta bring you to watch the next movie. No, it wasn't like that. But basically, the whole thing was like a hook to say, okay, I gotta watch Thor. And then, okay, I gotta watch Captain America. Okay, we have to go to watch the Avengers, because clearly they are gonna get all together and something is coming and there is a huge event. And so basically create a hook, and you start to watch movie after movie after movie because you want to be part of this shared universe, and it worked. But on the long run, he made he made a huge mistake. And the huge mistake is that since this old system created a studio system where you needed to appeal to an audience it was insanely broad, they had to kind of kill any sort of let's say identity that those characters hold. Because in the comic book, if you read the Punisher, it has his own kind of poetry, his own kind of gritty kind of mood. But if you read Spider-Man, is contained to what Spider-Man is. Spider-Man has not the same tone as the Punisher. Thor has not the same tone as Spider-Man. Captain America, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever, they don't share the same tone. Each run and each character, even if they live in a shared universe, when you like a character and you keep following that character, you are contained by what you like about that character. Even in DCs like that, I like Batman. I read Batman has not the same tone as Superman. They kind of have a different vibe to it, and that's why I like Batman more than Superman. That's why I like a lot Daredevil, Moon Knight, and I love Zero like Iron Man. I prefer those characters. I don't like Iron Man as a character. But anyway, Marvel, except for James Gunn, that kind of had, for very good reason, his own poetry and sort of poetic license that anybody else didn't have. Basically, the whole thing was very bland at some point. They all had to appeal to kids, but to the adults as well. And that kind of killed the vibe of the whole thing. In fact, everybody was shaking when we saw She-Hulk, and it was okay as She-Hulk in a way, even if narratively speaking is very bad. But from when Daredevil show up, he was so campy and not the character what we used to see in the TV show made by Netflix, that we all said, okay, they're going to fuck up Daredevil as well. He's going to have the Marvel treatment, and he's going to be a kid, a kind of character for kids, very, very, very always making jokes and cracking jokes and be light and be stupid, and it's done. But thank God, whatever happened, I talk about this in the Daredevil Season 2 review, everything changed and we had what we had. But that decision to basically choose a one single tone aesthetic for every Marvel character killed the idea of having interesting character, because that's what happened. And that was a huge mistake, because anyway, the thing with the Marvel character is that they took this decision because it was a corporate decision, not a creative decision. I think it was more a corporate decision, because they smelled the money and the chance to make, like they've done for more than 10 years, an insane amount of money, connecting and alienating the audience, forcing them to see and to watch every single character unfold the story on the big screen. But the mistake was also not because they toned down the personality of every single character till they annihilate completely some character personality. But the problem is that they didn't, Kevin Feige was ignoring the fact that you can't kind of defeat some, let's say, structural problem that those characters have. Because in the comic book, you're gonna fall in love with it. You're not gonna buy all the comic book, except for a huge fan. I've been reading comics since I was a kid, but I mostly read Spider-Man and Daredevil. A little bit of others here and there, but I never basically bought Avengers comic book, just a couple of times. I was focused on single characters, and I was kind of oblivious of the fact that I never asked myself why Daredevil is not coming in the existence, why Fantastic Four are not showing up in this very challenging time for Spider-Man, why sometimes they were crossover and it was funny, but most of the time, since it's a spider-centric kind of story or Daredevil kind of story, you don't feel like you have this question, even if in the back of your head sometimes you have it. But you just like ignore it, because there is not that direct connection that they made in movies. In movies, the connection is so direct and so powerful that anyway, the audience is going to say, why nobody's helping Daredevil? Even here in the Punisher, some audience is going to say, why? I don't know. Spider-Man is not showing up to clean up the neighborhood. Why Daredevil is not showing up? Why I don't know, Hulk, Doctor Strange, whatever. He's not showing up and clean up the neighborhood. It's going to be super easy for them. You kind of ask yourself a question, but you gotta use your suspension of disbelief to kind of kill that question and just follow your character. But that question is being raised by people just because you show up that those characters are super connected. They're all in the same world. They keep interacting with each other. Mostly in the last production, Spider-Man is highly connected to Iron Man. That there was a big mistake, and that the other character is connected to the other one. And basically, to try to keep the attention of the audience, they connected so much those characters that they kind of can't live without the others. And that was a huge mistake. But here, it looks like both in Daredevil and Punisher, they realize that they have to kill that idea, and they need to leave some space to those characters to have their own thing. And this is what they're supposed to do. It took the downfall of Marvel Studios to achieve this result, but thank God they are there, and I hope they're not gonna fuck it up. I'm gonna be honest. I really hope, because this is the way of writing good stories, when the story have their own personality, their own style of writing and directing, and use violence and use language. They need to have their own personal vision. Then, of course, when they are in a shared story like Thunderbolts, the New Avengers, or the next Avengers movie, I understand that according to the character that you choose to put together, they're gonna find a common ground, speaking of tone, and the movie is gonna have its own tone. Like in the Avengers comic book, the Avengers, they have a shared tone. It's not like if there is Spider-Man, is gonna switch context and everything. They're gonna have a shared tone. They're gonna find a middle ground to have all of them working together. But to be honest, I don't expect the Punisher fighting Doctor Doom. To be honest, I don't expect that. But anyway, I hope they're gonna take wise decision how to put together those characters. I expect the Punisher team up with Daredevil. I expect Jessica Jones to team up with the Punisher. Those make sense because they are more heroes. They are related to what they do and how they approach criminals and the kind of challenges that they fight. That makes sense, okay? I don't expect Daredevil to interact with Doctor Strange, even if in the comic happened for different reason, but I don't expect that. And I think that accepting this idiosyncrasy in the way comic book are shaped and the way adaptation are shaped, it's a way to go. So I hope in the future they will leave the Punisher with this. I hope they're gonna push to have something more John Wick kind of style. Speaking of action and violence, not that I want a 3 hours movie with Punisher killing everyone. I won't complain, to be honest, if I have it. But if I bring a good Punisher movie of an hour and a half, 1 hour and 40 minutes, and it's gonna be a very simple narrative that works beginning to an end, and a very good, amazing, adrenalinic, amazingly shot and choreographed action, I'm gonna be super happy, because this is what it is, the character. I don't pretend nothing more. I don't expect nothing more. Pretend is the right. I don't expect the right word. Nothing more. I don't want to be. I don't want the Punisher to have a crossover or a sort of, oh, we wrote this Punisher like the Othello, and I was not. Please do the Punisher and that's it. That's what I do, because every character and every story and every mood has its own objective and end game. And if I'm going to watch the Punisher, I want to watch the Punisher, and it's something that's going to be more action driven, more violence driven. It's going to be something very entertaining, not something where I expect to see a huge stake. Speaking of morality, there can be something, but very simple, nothing very complex. And I think they understood that. I suppose, but now we gotta talk in the elephant of the room, the CGI shot. The CGI, everyone started to argue about this CGI shot, and I have my thoughts about it and my theory about it. Okay, so hear me out. There is a scene in this very enjoyable and well-made special, a scene that is so brief, it's a couple of seconds, like 5-10 seconds, where the Punisher falls from one of the rooftops and he falls on another rooftop where there are those big like fan for, I don't know, air con, whatever. He falls on one of those, breaks everything, and it's very CGI-ish, poorly made, and everyone saw that and the internet went crazy. But then the production came and said, look, it's not CG, it's completely shot on camera, but the face swap, it's what it is. Because they show some picture, they show some behind the scene. There was the stunt double with the beard and the hair like John Burton in the movie and in the special, and it was thrown from the rooftop with the ropes and everything done safety, so it was shot on camera, and then in post-production they swap the face. But usually the face swap is literally face swap, so it's like face off, they swap the face and not everything else. In this case they completely replaced the head, sorry, I punched the microphone, the head of the stunt double, but the effect is so poorly made that it's bad. Some people just replaced, they put a model from GTA 5 and they were like, it's the same quality. And I have thoughts, I have a theory, so listen to me, listen about this theory that I have. What is my theory? Is that I think, first things first, they didn't plan to replace the face of the Punisher, of the stunt double. I think the plan was to have what they do usually, the stuntman. If you watch a movie like even a Kill Bill or Death Proof, where there are a lot of stunt work, where Zoe Bell, forgive me, Zoe Bell, she has been the stunt double for Uma Thurman for ages. She's fantastic. So sorry if for a second I doubt about your last name, I apologize, I love stunt. But anyway, when she's acting in a movie like Kill Bill, every time she's in the shot, both with the directing and both with her performance, she tries to cover her face with the movement that they do in the choreography, with the camera angle, so you can see that it's a stunt double. And even in that proof, I saw behind the scene where she says that sometimes by instinct she was basically hiding her face, and Tarantino was like, no, what are you doing? The whole point is that the movie is made by stuntmen, and basically we have a stunt woman, and I want to glorify your role as a stunt woman. So if you cover your face, because by instinct they take a fall and they try to fall like this to cover their face, if you do that, it defeats the whole purpose. So and she was like, oh sorry, I do it by instinct, it's a sort of a reflex. So what I think it happened here is that probably the stunt wasn't planned for him to try to cover his face for a specific way, and maybe it didn't work out. In post-production they saw that we can clearly see that it's a stunt, so we have to replace his face. But I think, that's my speculation, that probably they didn't plan to do that since the beginning. So probably they didn't put the trackers on their face that they usually do to actually do a face swap. So that's my speculation. Or maybe they didn't plan this properly, even if the scene is very illuminated in a way where VFX can work effectively. But basically they didn't plan this accurately, And at the end of the day, instead of swapping just the face, they swap the whole head. But the swap of the whole head, even if it's just for a few frames and it's just a head, it's done in such a low quality that it looks like actually a video game from 10-15 years ago. And I think that wasn't the plan, but they ended up doing like that. And also I think that since probably they work just poorly, not because the VFX team worked poorly, also the fixed team was let go not that long ago, but I think that they work so poorly that the model, as far as we know, according to what we see on screen, and I tested this because I work with Unreal Engine and I know how to model in real-time 3D and stuff, those technologies that they use sometimes even in production. I think maybe they took the face of John Bertram, they put it in one of those tools they work on browser. You can do this on your browser. And they basically created with AI, okay, a version of his face. Very easily. And I think this is what happened. I don't think I have something. I can show you something, a couple of things here and there, to show you how you can do that. But it's very easy. I will show you something. But anyway, I think that's what happened. And at the end of the day, probably, sometimes what they do in production is that if the model that they replace is not 100% accurate, or just for the sake of consistency, since they didn't replace just the face but the whole model of the head, what they do sometimes is that even if they had everything on camera, they replace the whole actor. Because anyway, the movements are tracked, and they can basically replace the whole actor with a 3D model. Okay? And so most likely they replace the whole 3D model of the actor, even if they have the movement. Because now with AI, I'm going to show you. No, I can't show you because I have a different layer on. So let's cut. So as I was saying, I can show you. Now you don't need to have a very complex studio to make this. With AI, you can make mocap easily. Look at this. This is one of the service where they use it in video game, but I can have a simple stuff like somebody dancing or moving, and then replace it in Unreal with a 3D model, and it's gonna work fine, even if I have a simple movement or stuff like that. And those, I try some of those. Even with poor lighting and stuff like that, you can achieve a very good result. And I think that maybe they swapped the whole model, but the end result was really poor, and so that's what happened. That's what I think what happened. That's why we see a very bad CG effect, because the head is not the swap that they were supposed to do. So I show you something from a video game. Seth Rogen was put in Call of Duty. Okay, I don't know if you remember, but a while ago they put Seth Rogen in Call of Duty, and they have done. They've used the system that they usually use for scanning an actor and his face. So they put him into this sort of cage with a shitload of DSLR camera, and they shot with marker on his face. an insane amount of pictures, so they have the full head, and then when they do the body, the full body with different expression and stuff like that. So do an angry face, do a rest face, smile, those kind of stuff, and they take those pictures. So then they can take this and have a high fidelity model in 3D that they can use for video game. And the result, if you check the final result, it's stunning. It's very good for a video game, but sometimes it's very good for even production, for movie production. If you see Seth Rogen, it's amazing. What you can achieve in video game, it's insane with the technology that now they use for 3D, even in movies. But it's insane. If you watch stuff like even Death Stranding 2 behind the scene, I'm gonna show you something from Death Stranding. I don't know if you know this production, but anyway, we have Al Fanning, we have many other Léa Seydoux. We have this insane technology where faces, expression are insane good. And I think the production for the Punisher didn't went to distance to do this. They didn't went to scan John Bertrand face to use it wherever on the production here and there, wherever they needed. I think they just create a very cheap model in post-production, and that's why it's very cheap. Because if they wanted to do a simple face swap for just a couple of frames, because I've seen that it's very easy to make, the audience is not gonna notice if you do this kind of level of fidelity in a movie or in a TV show. They could have done that easily, but what I think happened is that they didn't actually put the effort of doing it, and so that's what happened. Basically, that's my speculation. Okay. And so this is it. I think that even if they'd done the whole thing on camera, they didn't go to distance and make the actual effort to work on a proper model. That's what it is. I think that's it. But except for this, I think they've made a good job. So I think it's okay. I think it's, except for this thing, Punisher One Last Kill is a must watch. So go watch it and have fun. Coffee. Have coffee. Anyway, let's talk about Mortal Kombat 2, and I'm going to make a similar piece to what that I made for the Punisher. So, what happened with this movie? Again, do not overcomplicate the bread. So, what happened in 2021? They released the first Mortal Kombat, the first new adaptation, and everybody was hyped, even if the director was a new director, and even if from the trailer we learned that the main character wasn't an actual main character from Mortal Kombat. So what happened is that I started to watch the movie so hyped, because I was like, oh my god, Mortal Kombat. So I was so hyped because in the cast there was Hiroki Sanada. Then when he went to win award for Shogun, he's a very good and fine actor. And I was like, okay, maybe since now the whole idea of those kind of martial art movie are out there and they keep coming and people like it, maybe they understood that they need to make a Mortal Kombat movie that has to be violent and with a lot of action and with a lot of choreography and maybe using stunt person to make the character and make a very fun movie. But it wasn't the case. They made a very silly movie with a main character that wasn't none of the character of the roster of Mortal Kombat, was a new character. They have to put the UFC in the middle, the MMA in the middle, and the guy is basically a loser. The thing I didn't understand about the movie is that the main character is a guy that get beaten up beginning to an end, and basically at the end where he has his superpower, like in Mortal Kombat everyone has a sort of special power and stuff like that. His superpower is that he get beaten pretty bad, and then he let this energy, he stored this energy, and then he let this energy explode. So the superpower is to be a loser, basically, and get beaten up by the opponent till he explode. That was like, okay. Whoever wrote this, can he go to jail? Can he be sent to jail? Because the concept is very bad. At the beginning, you start the movie and go like, so it's a story with Sub-Zero and Scorpion, this rivalry. No. Mortal Kombat is barely in the movie. I mean, there is no tournament for the fate of the human race, of the mankind. There is nothing like that. The fighting are barely there. The ones that are there are not that compelling or interesting, and the movie sucked. To be honest, I don't get whoever loved the movie. The movie is barely okay. It's a bad movie. I'm sorry. And so when they said, okay, we're gonna make a sequel, I was like, okay, I'm scared. It's the same director, and I was like, okay. But there is Johnny Cage as the main character. I was like, oh, you have my attention. And it's played by Karl Urban. Oh, you have definitely my attention. And the movie, it's a decent movie. It's not a masterpiece. I'm gonna be it's not even a very good movie, speaking of kind of martial art. If you like martial art movies, and it's not that brilliant as a movie, but it's a decent movie. It has the Mortal Kombat. There is the Mortal Kombat, because basically the whole movie, it's about, there is a Mortal Kombat for the fate of humanity. And Shao Kahn is kind of cheating, because he's trying to be immortal, so he basically can't be defeated, and so he's gonna win every Mortal Kombat ever. And those heroes, so Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, Jax, the guy from the previous movie, and Raiden, they are going to collect Johnny Cage as a new fighter to join them to defeat Shao Kahn. And then in the process he wants to be immortal, but mostly it's a sort of a revenge story for Kitana, because Kitana, her realm was taken over by Shao Kahn. She killed her father in front of her in a very gory way, and this is the good part of the movie. Basically, fatalities are in the movie without calling them fatality, without being that, I don't know, obvious, but actually they have fatality. The movie is full of violence. It's full of places that you recognize from the game. It makes sense, but the story is, it's not just a fight after another, that it wouldn't be bad per se, but it's basically, there is the Mortal Kombat, but at the same time there is them trying to avoid to have Shao Kahn being immortal, and they have to win the Mortal Kombat. And the whole thing is based around Kitana and Johnny Cage. And kudos to Karl Urban. He didn't fuck up. He did a great job. I heard, I read this interview where he says, my son told me don't fuck it up. And he didn't. He's a very magnetic and charming and funny Johnny Cage. That is he's like a sort of Jean-Claude Van Damme in the world of Mortal Kombat, because that's what Johnny Cage is in a way. So basically, he was a fighter, like Jean-Claude Van Damme in real life. He was an actual fighter, okay? He has record, he won fights and stuff like that. And then he was borrowed to the action movie. He became an action movie star. Johnny Cage is the same. But he's seen his downfall, because those kind of movie, they don't sell anymore. So he's basically at the bottom of, at the bottom of his career, and then he finds a new meaning with Raiden and stuff like that, and he finds himself, and he finds a way to find who he actually is and what he can do best in the Mortal Kombat. And it's very good, and it's very entertaining, it's very funny. The fighting, the choreography are okay. They're we see Baraka, and I love how they portrayed Baraka. We see Noob, we see Scorpion again, and it's so iconic. Scorpion, I love Scorpion. The thing, get over here, it's amazing. I love it. It's iconic, it's so powerful. But anyway, the movie works, and I think it works very well. It works very well, and I think it can be kind of better in a way, because my thing is that there are fatality, there is gore, there is violence. It's kind of the character are over the top in the way they need to be over the top. There is a sort of humor that Mortal Kombat need to have, because if you start take Mortal Kombat too seriously, it doesn't work, because it's one of those things that is so over the top that you can't take it seriously. Even the video game, since the beginning of time, playing Mortal Kombat was a weird, quirky, over the top experience. The game itself, it wasn't taking itself seriously. I mean, they were making and cracking joke here and there in Mortal Kombat. Some stuff were very over the top. So when you do an adaptation, the problem with the first movie of Mortal Kombat is that they were kind of taking themselves too seriously, and you're not supposed to do that. But the movie works, it's fine. I love Karl Urban, I love the choreography, as I was saying, the violence. But even if the movie kind of works, I have some thoughts about... I think there are some things that don't work because there is a problem at the source. And I think the problem at the source is the director, Simon McQuoid, because the previous movie was his debut movie. This is his second movie. And I don't think that Mortal Kombat is the kind of movie that you can give to this kind of director. Okay? And the reason is that Mortal Kombat as a movie, but as an IP in general, it's a sort of based on martial arts kind of movies. So the kind of movies that in our part of the world were the sort of niche. If you go in the Hong Kong cinema and stuff like that, they work like a charm. And the thing is that every director or actor that was insanely famous in the Hong Kong cinema scene and in the other side of the world, when they came to Hollywood, they were basically a joke, because Hollywood has not the same structure to produce those kind of movie. Even Jackie Chan, when Jackie Chan came to the United States and started to work with Hollywood, he made some good movies, but they were not as good as the one that he made in Hong Kong. They were never as good as Police Stories. They were never as good and interesting and with many funny solutions as the one that he made in Hong Kong. Same thing for John Woo. John Woo, they use it to make Mission Impossible, and they use it to make Face Off, if I remember. John Woo, that it's a great filmmaker, speaking of action. And if you have never watched his filmography, please go watch please Hard Boiled. Go watch Better Tomorrow. Go watch his filmography from the 80s, because they're Bullet in the Head, Hard Boiled, Broken Arrow. No, Broken Arrow was in the United States. If you go like Broken Arrow, you go like, meh. Face Off, there is Nicolas Cage, is great. The rest. Mission Impossible 2, oh my good god. But to see a good John Woo movie, you have to basically forget the filmography in the United States. You gotta go to the first movie that he made, and then you gotta go back to when he came back to China, and he started to do Red Cliff Part 2, Reign of Assassin. You gotta go back, because when he came back to United States and he did Silent Night, why? I was like, why? What happened to those great minds when they come over to the United States? Why they broke them? Because it's not the same. The same was for a director that I think that would be amazing in a Mortal Kombat production, that is Timo Tayanto. Timo, I think the pronounce is completely wrong, but he's the director and writer of a great movie that is on Netflix called The Night Comes for Us. It's an amazing action movie with great choreography, great execution. I love it. It's insanely well made. It's gonna be a lot of fun. If you love action movie, martial art with a lot of violence, you're gonna have a good fun. But then they took him and they put him to direct Nobody 2, and Nobody 2 looks like a kid version of a martial art movie, a very not because there is no violence, but because basically, I don't know, a little bit, but because maybe Bob Odenkirk is good at in executing the choreography, but probably he is not fit enough to do everything he would like to make him to do. He's not the same as, I don't know, if we take in consider equal ways that he made the Ride 2, he's not as good as those stunt martial artists, of course, because he's not a martial artist. But if you take The Night Comes for Us, and there is a cast of actors that you have seen even in Mortal Kombat, because there is Joe Taslim, there is Uko Weiss, and those martial artists are amazing. And when they act in those movies are fantastic. And in Nobodies too, he can't make the same stuff. In fact, basically a big part of Nobody 2 is Home Alone in a water park and with violence, but that's it. Nobody 2 is very mid, but not because of the director, but because he can't do, I think the problem is that he can't do the same things. But even taking this in consideration, even if we don't take in consideration director from Hong Kong, China, and Thailand, and those countries where they still use that kind of cinema and they still know the craft, even if we take like Gareth Evans, that he went to those countries to make the Raid and the Raid 2, and those movies are great. And even if we take somebody like Sam Hargrave, he was a stunt coordinator that worked as well on Atomic Blonde. He worked as well on The Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier is basically considered as one of the best Marvel movies ever made. Everybody praised the stunt, everybody praised the Russo brothers, but if you check the interview and the behind the scene, the Russo brothers themselves, they said that in many cases Sam Hargrave kind of saved the day with the stunts and the stunt coordinator, because he was on set and they realized that he couldn't make some stuff in a certain way, and it was sometimes on the day and on the spot coming up with solution to make choreography and stunt work, even with oh my god, I'm having a blank. Chris Evans, sorry, he's very good at learning choreography because he can dance. You're gonna say, what does he mean? He means that he can catch up with choreography very fast, because when people know how to dance and they are used to learn choreography, they are good at catching fast choreography, because in a way fighting is you gotta execute the choreography, you gotta do 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, no, and he's gonna learn very fast, and he was very good at it, and he kind of saved the movie, and that's why then with other stunt coordinator he wanted to be a director, and he made Extraction 2 that I don't like very much, but he's gonna release Extraction 3, and he worked on Atomic Blonde. I believe that if they were there saying, okay, Sam, would you like to direct Mortal Kombat? I believe Sam Hargrave, even with Karl Urban, that is not a martial artist, but with other actor being martial artist and stunt, I believe the movie would have been way better. And I believe that if they give those movies to a director like Sam Hargrave, that was a stunt coordinator, or even the director of John Wick, that oh my god, even here you see John Wick and it's amazing. You see, I'm not joking, because if you see John Wick and you see how amazing is the first film, even the second, I don't like it that much, but the fourth one and the third one, I love them. But Chad Stahelski, that he directed the series, basically, if you see him on John Wick, he's amazing. Okay, if you see him directing something, if you see the production that came out after John Wick, like I rewatched the other day, Ryan Gosling, the one with Ryan Gosling, where the hell, Fall Guy, that is directed by David Leitch. David Leitch, I love him, but if you see his movie, David Leitch, if you take the filmography, he's uncredited in John Wick, but he directed Atomic Blonde, that it's amazing, because Charlize Theron is a force of nature. She's fantastic, and she's amazing in that movie. And Atomic Blonde, it's great. But then you watch Deadpool 2 and you go like, it's okay. It's a decent action movie. Hobbs and Shaw, you go like, Bullet Train, and I enjoy it, but you see that there is this influence of using a lot of CGI, VFX and stuff like that. You see the Fall Guy, oh my god, here also as well, there is too much. There is a work that is not the same as John Wick and Atomic Blonde. Okay? But you gotta put those stars in those movies, otherwise they don't work with the audience. But anyway, they don't work anyway, because I think the Fall Guy wasn't that successful, and Bullet Train probably the same. But anyway, you see how he's not as spectacular in the final result as those movies. But you have Keanu Reeves in a movie that is very... He has always done choreography in The Matrix, and then in John Wick. You have Charlize Theron, she does choreography, she does stuff, she goes into the fighting and stuff like that. But even you take Gareth Evans, another example. Gareth Evans, he made The Raid, and are fantastic. But Havoc, when he made Havoc, how the hell is called, with the one and only Tom Hardy, that movie, I appreciate so many things, but in some cases I think he indulged a little bit too much into the use of CG and VFX. The whole movie has, the opening scene is all CG, is well done overall, but the movie, it's also kind of mediocre because the action, I think, is limited by the fact that Tom Hardy wasn't... I think he didn't do the job that he was supposed to do in this movie. I think he kind of dropped the ball a little bit, speaking of action, compared to Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves. That's what I think. But I think that all those directors, they are kind of they kind of fall short when we come to Hollywood, with huge actor and Hollywood production. But Mortal Kombat has to be treated differently. And I think that if they give the movie to one of those directors and they can work with the stunts and they just have one actor, in this case Carl Urban, that is going to be the one that is not an actual stunt and stuff like that, they can achieve a great result, I think. Because they know how to move the camera correctly, they know how to give dynamism in scene according to the choreography. I think they can do a way better job. Because, for example, I think the camera work and the way it's directed work better in the Punisher than in this Mortal Kombat 2. I think sometimes it's just lazy. In a way, not because the director is a bad director. I don't think Simon Beckwith is a bad director. I just think he's not a good fit for this kind of movie, and I think it doesn't work. It doesn't work properly. But anyway, I think that if they want to move forward, and that's apparently what they want to do, I hope they're gonna be more ambitious. I know that usually they don't do that. So if it's working, why try to make it work more? This is how they think. But I hope they will do it, because there is a great potential to make a great martial art kind of movie. I mean, if you even check stuff like Ombak, I don't back film. I don't recall Ong Bak. Okay, Ong Bak. It's an action movie. It's a martial arts kind of movie, and it's great. It was made in Thailand with not that much of money. I know that Mortal Kombat is kind of different, but if you take in principle that approach, I think you can make a good movie and it's gonna be fun, because from Mortal Kombat I don't expect a great narrative. I expect a good martial art kind of movie. Whoever expects from Mortal Kombat a great narrative, it's crazy. That's what I think. But to be honest, I believe this is the blind spot of the movie, that it needs a director that is more focused on the martial art side and less a little bit of make it work with the VFX, because some decision to me look like, okay, have the actor standing there, we shot it like this just because we need to have the fake background and stuff like that. Let's go. Okay. Would be more interesting if they were investing the money in the more practical effect and stunt and choreography, and have a movie that it's more interesting and less studio movie that it tried to be something else and it's not. It's not a martial art kind of movie, and it's not even an action Hollywood action movie. It's trying to be something in between, and every time you do something in between, there is a good chance that it's not going to work. In this case, kind of works, but if you like martial arts kind of movie, it's okay. You go like, but you're striving for something more than okay, even with Mortal Kombat, okay? So that's my opinion about Mortal Kombat 2 and the Punisher. I'd like to hear your thoughts, so let me know what you think in a comment. I hope you're gonna enjoy the rest of the podcast that I publish in those days. I hope you're gonna come back. Let me know, share the podcast, vote, and see you next time. Bye.